And so before we let him do his tribe talk today, because we actually are throwing him on that too, we're going to honor you and just say, hey, you know what, this is for fuel for your wedding planning. And so we love you, man. And you're talking about Daniel, right? Right?
Yep.
No, he's talking about Elijah. All right, here we go.
Isaiah improv challenge. You know, Isaiah said he's not going to tell me. You're doing the tribe talk tomorrow, and I'm not going to tell you what you're doing it on until you get there. I'm like, wait, what? No. Okay, so we've been learning about Elijah. One of my favorite things, and now sometimes when I read Elijah, does anyone else sometimes find it difficult to relate to someone who's done like the third most miracles of anyone in Scripture? Because I don't feel like that represents my faith very well. Someone calling down fire on soldiers. But one of my favorite things about him, and now you've heard this preached before, the whole broom tree thing, but I want to figure out the correlation between mountains and valleys. Because let me tell you, we use that as a metaphor. That was literal for him. I love how in Scripture, in passage 19, he goes from Mount Carmel, literally the place that he does his most impressive, awesome feat for God, calling down the fire, slaying all the prophets of Baal. And then isn't it funny how literally the next chapter, he's underneath a broom tree in a valley saying, God, just kill me, I'm tired. Okay? One place, his greatest high, his greatest victory was immediately followed by his greatest defeat. And let me tell you, sometimes in your life, you're going to go through some highs, you're going to go through some lows. But the fact is Satan's favorite thing is to hit us when we are on that mountaintop. It is his favorite time when we feel like we are untouchable and we have such faith. He loves using that pride to then make us feel like we are so alone. In fact, the reason why he was griping is because he's like, God, I'm completely alone. I am the only one who stands for you. Boy, have I felt that way sometimes, and boy, have I been wrong. And might I show you that the next mountaintop that God led him to wasn't back to a Mount Carmel. It wasn't fire. It wasn't brimstone. It was no huge, impressive miracle. The next mountaintop that God sent an angel to lead him to was a place where he could come into communion with him. See, God knew what he needed. Elijah thought that he needed to go back up to that mountain to call down fire again. And sometimes when we get off our high, we think the same thing. But God knew that he had to bring him back to a place where God himself could speak to him. Guys, remember, it's not about what you do for God. It's what God does through you. It's not what you can do for God. It's your relationship with God. We are invited to be a conduit of his presence. We are invited to be a place where he uses, and that is a privilege that he does not need to use. But because he wants to spend time with you, because he wanted to spend time with Elijah, he brought him back up to another mountaintop, and it looked very different. It looked like a place where he could have communion and where he was with God in his presence, not in the fire, not in the storm, but in the quiet. He assured him, you are not alone. I have reserved a remnant for you. You are not abandoned. My power will always be with you. And don't you dare wish to cut your life 1 second short than for the purposes that I've called you, because you are just getting begun. You have people to anoint. You have kings to raise up.